The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Thrilled to be with you on this wonderful Monday morning. Got a big show planned for you. We want to remind you that we are going to be here talking with you and that we hope for you to interact with us. In fact, Traven's going to start to show you some of the different ways that you can connect. I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's so much to do there. The toy guide is still there, and I encourage you to check it out because there's some amazing toys. I love when you guys have written and said, you know what, I looked at the toy guide, I got that toy, and it was great, and my kid loved it. I'd love pictures of that. If you got a toy now or over the holidays for somebody and it was great, send us a picture. I'd love to see that. That would make my day. Anyway, you can also go through our whole library of videos, which is super fun. Or if you just want a certain genre of our videos, like you really like Jargon of the Day, because you roll that way, then there's the whole playlist that's Jargon of the Day. But if you like the recipes, go to the recipe section because it's super fun. Traven, I'm just thinking, off the cuff here too, we have not shown the January recipes that we did a couple of years ago. We might have to hunt those up. I just the other day was making the meatloaf that we made from our January recipes, and it's a great recipe because you sneak all these carrots and broccoli into the meatloaf and it's yum-alicious. Okay, so anyway, back to this. You can also chat with us directly from the homepage by going to the little chat button at the bottom of our homepage. Click that and it opens up. You can be typing, you hit enter, it shows up here on my screen. It's free, it's anonymous, right? When you're writing to us on Facebook and YouTube, people can see what you wrote. If you want to be anonymous, you don't want people to know it was you who said it, you can do that over at our homepage, autism-live.com. I do like to start on Thursdays to remind you that we have lots of experts who are on the show. I've got a couple of great ones for you today, but remember, I'm not one of them. My credentials to be here, I'm a very proud mother of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And here's the other thing, I have a lot of karmic debt I need to pay forward. So I care deeply. I'm a former teacher too. I think that sort of qualifies me. I care deeply about what you're going through. And by you, I mean the larger autism community, of course. That's individuals who are on the spectrum. Of course, it's everyone who loves them and cares about them and wants them to be able to do the things that are meaningful for them in their lives. So I want to help all of you to get to the things that are important to you. It's not one size fits all because it can't be. Our community isn't one size fits all. So write to us, tell us what you need, but don't, I'm fond of saying now we just the other day crested the 14-year anniversary of my son being diagnosed with autism, and it's been over a decade that I've been hosting a show in one way or the other about autism and interviewing experts. So, look, do I have an informed opinion? I think so. But it is an opinion. It's not an expertise. So if you want to know my opinion about something, write in and specifically say, Shannon, I want to know what you think or say about this. I'm always happy to share that. But otherwise, we're going to let the experts field it, right? And if there's something you need expert information about, write to me and I'll hunt down an expert in that thing. How's that? Okay, we do like to start Mondays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are the experts talking about. What does this have to do with me? Do I really have to learn this term? Because I'm here with the learning things, right? Yes, if it helps us to save time, money, and make more progress, then we want to learn it, right? So this term today, reinforcer, is at the crux of all of that. Now, when we do jargon of the day, first we give you the actual definition, and because I enjoy making fun of it, let's be honest. And then we give you a working definition, hopefully so that you can begin to understand how this might work in your life, right? And if you don't get it the first time, don't sweat it, because we go back over these terms. And sometimes I think you have to hear it and then experience it and then hear it again, and you go, oh, I know what that looks like, and I know why that's important, right? So give yourself a little bit of a break if you don't get it right off the bat. So today, reinforcer. This is one of those good old words where we all go, I know what a reinforcer is. It's something that enforces something, right? But how does this pertain to autism and particularly to ABA? So let's take a look at this great definition that we have. Here's the actual definition. A stimulus/event delivered contingent on the exhibition of a behavior, which increases the probability of that behavior continuing to occur or occurring more often in the future. For example, if the child enjoys being tickled, tickles may be used as a potential reinforcer for correct responding or appropriate behavior. Thank goodness for the example, because otherwise we'd be like whistling in the wind in a field somewhere going, huh? What? Well, I love how complicated experts like to make things be. Contingent on the exhibition of a behavior which increases the probability of that behavior continuing to occur or occurring more often in the future. What? Right? Okay, but let's move on. You kind of get it though from the example, right? It begins to make a certain amount of sense, but notice that they qualify and say it's a potential reinforcer. Let's move on to our working definition so that we can get into whys and wherefores here. So a reinforcer is something that acts as a reward for your child or for you, for any individual, and motivates him or her or you to continue engaging in a particular behavior, good or bad. Okay, so basically the reinforcer is the paycheck. It's the thing that it's big enough that it makes you want to continue doing a behavior, good or bad. When you're smoking, you get some sort of a paycheck, right? For some people, it's the sting of the inhale. For other people, it's the social interaction, right? But there is a paycheck, and so you continue to smoke. And then it becomes an addiction, but that's different. So look, if we want to make sure that a behavior continues to happen, then we want to give it a reinforcer that is meaningful. And sometimes, think about yourself. Sometimes you're willing to do something because let's use the example of chocolate cake. You want a piece of chocolate cake. Somebody says, do this, you get the piece of chocolate cake, so you do it. But then sometimes you're like, I've had chocolate cake. I don't want chocolate cake, and it's not enough for me to do it, right? Because we change our mind. So a reinforcer is only a reinforcer if it does make the behavior happen or happen more often. It's more likely to happen, right? Okay, so that means we need to give preference assessments, which when we're asking somebody to do something, ask them what would make it worthwhile. And then you got to try it to see if that's actually really reinforcing. And remember that all of the bad behavior that we do, and I say bad because we all engage in behavior that's not useful or helpful, right? We all do. But all of it is being reinforced in some way. And if you really want to figure out how to change that behavior, figure out what the reinforcement is. Okay, they're telling me I got to hurry this along because we got big guests. So moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. And our question today I absolutely love. We're not in February yet, but it's never too early to talk about this subject. What is your definition of love? The big love, what is it? This is like an icebreaker for me if I'm talking to people at a party and it's not a business party. Like, I think this is a great question to ask people. What's your definition of love? One of my friends from college, she said that her mom taught her that the definition of love is when you're willing to do whatever to be with that person. As in, if that person is shoveling poo for the day, that you're like, I don't like to shovel poo, but I'm going to go shovel poo because I'm going to do it with you. That was the definition of love. I walked around with that for years, and then I realized that's not for me, that's not the definition of love. And I think the definition of love is when you feel better when you're with the person as opposed to not being with the person. Like you feel like you're your best self when you're with them, and you want to be your best self with them, and you feel like you are accepted completely and you accept that person. Now, is that possible to maintain, 100% of the time? I don't know. But I certainly, I've been blessed with the love of my life. And I always say to people, the biggest gift that my husband has given me over the years is that he loves me for exactly who I am, not in spite of it. Yes, I talk too much, and he's okay with that. You know what I mean? So that's love. Okay, so then we always have a topic for the week, and our topic this week is that today is enough. So often we get ourselves so much into the future and so much into the past instead of dealing with what is today. And especially if you are an individual on the spectrum or you are taking care of someone who's on the spectrum, I want you to focus on what can I do today? And just ask yourself that question, what can I do today? And you can add things to what can I do today to support my child speaking? What can I do today to reinforce, what's happening with my ABA provider? What can I do today? Because when you put today plus tomorrow plus the next day, if you just do enough of the right things day in, day out, things get better. So, and I know sometimes we're like, but he can't read, right? I remember when my son was 3 and I was like, he's not going to be able to go to college. And people were like, start here. You can't climb this mountain by starting at the top. Start here and walk the path day by day. And my son's going to college in a year and a half. Right? And I'm not ready for that. Let's not go there. But the point is saying, what can I do today? Focus on today. Live your best life today. Do what you got to do today. What action can I take today to set myself up for success? What action today can I set my child up for success? What action today can set up my team for success? And do that today, and then do that tomorrow, and then do that the day after, and it will add up to where you want to go. I'm telling you, it works. All right, we got a big show for you. We got Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, coming up in just a minute. She's going to answer a question about IEPs, and then she's got some really good resources for us. Then a little bit later, we have Paul Worthington, and he is going to be with us from Lindamood-Bell. He's the director of the research and development at Lindamood-Bell, and he's going to tell us about some really interesting research having to do with language processing and how we can change that equation and how that helps with reading comprehension. Because I know you guys write in and ask a lot about, well, my kid can read, but the comprehension isn't there. And he's got some really interesting research to talk about us with that. So that's what's happening today. Stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages. You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome to the show. So the goal of today, we're going to make meatballs. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to take roughly a pound of my ground organic turkey, and I'm going to add in the secret vegetable. So if your kid doesn't like vegetables, don't cook in front of them, okay? Have them watch a movie or something. But you definitely want to make sure they're not watching, because then they won't eat it. So, and here we go with the egg. And our breadcrumbs. I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. If you think about kids' shapes and sizes, you want to think small shapes, small hands. So your oven should be preheating at about 400 degrees. We're going to kick into the oven here and look at our meatballs. I did flip them halfway through the 20-odd minute. So we'll put, just like Julia Child's, there's our finished product right there. These are good. Cooking is easy. You don't have to be afraid of it. But we want to hear from you. If you can let us know what recipes are important to you, maybe convert a recipe from a traditional flour or gluten-based to a gluten-free or an allergy-free, we're here to help. So you get to us, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. You can reach out on Facebook at facebook.com/autismlive, or reach out at Taka Now. So I know you're having a great day. I had a lot of fun cooking with you in the kitchen, but I'll tell you before we end, I gotta have more meatballs. Have a great day.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman with Taka. We're here with the Taka Facts, the most common questions in the autism journey, real life questions and answers for your family. Oh boy, this one gets me in trouble. I get this question probably at least a dozen times a week, but how do I get my significant other on board? Whether it's having ABA done in your home, 5 days a week, speech therapy, or even biomedical intervention. I'm talking to you as a parent. It happened to me in the autism journey 3 years after diagnosis. I felt like I'd been through a war zone. I don't have pictures. I don't remember those 3 years. It was awful, and I'm surprised my husband and I made it out of that war zone. So here's some of the tips that helped me get through those 3 years and made it a better marriage, because he's the one I want to be with. First thing you need to do, and this goes for dudes and chicks, replace all the bathroom reading material. Now, whether you just had an independent evaluation with a neuropsychologist, or you just went to your doctor, your MAPS doctor, to help your child get through some serious medical issues, replace the labs, replace the neuropsych eval, and put that all in the bathroom. That's where we do our best reading and thinking, after all. It's one of the most simplistic things that you can do, but literally replace all the bathroom reading material. 2, very important that twice a year you have a meeting and you schedule it with your spouse to say, we're going to do the next 6 months of planning, whether it's just create a quick list, identify the issues or the self-stimulatory behavior or the things that you need to do to help your child with autism make the project. Let me give you an example. We created the Man Project. My son was becoming a teenager, and we found ourselves living a little bit in a rut, babying him a little too much. So what we did was we created a Man Project, and we identified a list of the skills and the things that we wanted my son or our son to learn. We agreed to it, and then we came up with a plan that we could activate over the next 6 months. And my next favorite, don't forget to have sex with your spouse. Often you will feel disconnected with the person that you love. And if you're not connected with them, you're not connected with them in that way. You're not connecting with them in your autism journey. So my husband laughs, he calls me Dr. Ruth, so I'm giving you a coupon to please just go have sex with your spouse. That will help move things along, but also make it a little more cohesive in a house of chaos, living with autism. So hi, this is Lisa signing out as Dr. Ruth. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa Ackerman with Taka, and we'll talk to you at the next Taka Facts.
Welcome back to Autism Live, to this wonderful segment that we call Your Rights with Bonnie Yates. She's a special education attorney. She is joining us via Skype. Bonnie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you, Shannon?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
We're thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to you and have you answer questions and give us heads up on legal things that we should know about. But first, we want to talk about the wonderful law firm that you work with and what your disclaimer is for being on the show.
Okay, so I work with Tollner Law Offices. They're based in San Jose. We now have offices in El Segundo and Irvine as well. If you want a complimentary consultation and you're located in Northern or Southern California, if you go to the website, Tollner Law Offices, you can fill in, there's a quick handy dandy sheet to fill in for your consultation. We'll set it up for you. Also, we are asking questions today and we're answering questions today under California law and federal law, but not law in the other 49 states. So if you have another state problem or you have a specific problem, we really suggest you confer with an attorney in your state, and a good list of attorneys can be found at the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates. I don't know all those people personally, but I've met a lot of them at the COPA conference over the years, and I think they're very dedicated practitioners, many of whom have a family member with a disability, which is why they're doing this.
Yeah, a wonderful resource.
So we have a question, and then we have a lot of information for people that hopefully will be new and useful.
And I just want to remind people that when you were on the show last week, you kind of threw out a challenge, and we've gotten some response already. But yes, but I want to be fair and equal and even, and remind people that they can be writing to us, that you have partners at the Tollner Law Office, that you've said, people, basically our viewers get to write in and say who they would like to be on the show. So if
that's what you got to do.
So
you got to vote.
So write into me.
Go to the website, look at the attorneys, look at their bios, and see who you want to hear from, and we'll bring them on the show.
Okay, fabulous. So should we start with the question that we had come in?
Let's always start with the question.
Okay, and I thought this was a good question really for everybody. Somebody wrote in and said, what should I be doing now to prepare for my IEP in April? And an April IEP is a little bit late, right? Aren't they mostly February, March, or am I mistaken?
I don't feel like there's any mostly.
Okay.
I feel like they do them up to the wire. The problem would be if you need a follow-up IEP and you're starting so late, it's going to be hard to schedule. If you have a stay put that you want to perpetuate, you are better off having your IEP earlier in case you have to file for due process. The administrators won't be as completely fried as they will be by the time they do the inordinate number of IEPs that they do, which I don't understand how another human being can do 80 or 125 IEP meetings in a year, but they do it. So I think early gives you more time to react. It gives you more time to ask for an outside evaluation at district expense. There's a lot of reasons.
Okay.
So this listener asks how to prepare for her IEP, but she doesn't tell me, is it annual? Is it a triennial? What's the student's eligibility? What are the placement issues? Are there new assessments? Are there specific things you want to discuss with the team? So I'm going to bounce it back to you and ask you, can you please send us a more specific question about what you'd like to get accomplished at your IEP, and a little more information about the background stuff that I just asked you about, and then we can try to answer it on the show the next time.
Can we just briefly, though, address, because you brought up this interesting thing, what the difference is between an annual and a triannual IEP for people who don't know?
Yes. So an annual, the district's legally obligated to meet with you annually to revisit and update your IEP. And then every 3 years, they're supposed to do a full reevaluation, so all new assessments, and look at things really holistically and comprehensively. So if you're having an annual, you might have new assessments, but you wouldn't necessarily have had new assessments. If you're having a tri, actually they changed the law, and you can waive your triennial evaluations, but I don't recommend people do that. I think it's a bad idea. Because if you waive your tri, then when you want to get an IEE, there's no evaluation to disagree with.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't set you up for success. Let's be honest about that.
Yes, it's not a good idea.
Okay.
So,
you just had a visitor walk past you, Bonnie.
That's my lovely son,
well,
who is home from college and
we're waving
moving
to
the
him.
next phase of his life.
We're waving to him.
So,
it was like, wow, there was like a person who just walked by.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't want to leave it unsaid. So
okay.
you had some.
I was just going to let him be kind of a phantom on the screen.
Ah, wonderful. I was way too curious. Curious minds want to know.
Okay.
So anyway, there were some things that you also wanted to talk about. What's on your topic today?
Lots of things that I want to talk about. I'm doing shameless plugs for other people, but I'm doing it because I think the stuff they do is so good, and I think it'll be useful to you guys. And I've vetted these people myself over and over and over again, so it's not like I'm just giving you some names. So I had a really exciting meeting with a child advocate who is herself the parent of a child with a disability, and she's been taking on areas that I can't take on because they're not cost effective for me to do so as a lawyer. And the important one is in-home supported services, aka IHSS. So if you have a child at home with a disability and you provide full-time care for that child, if the degree of disability merits it, you can be paid for all the work you are doing for free for your child, which is significant because it may allow you to stay out of the workforce and stay at home and do the things that you can do for your child that you do better than anybody else. You couldn't pay for the kind of job that parents do for free. So this lady's name is Melissa Schomburg Lander, and she gets IHSS for people, and she told me that the maximum amount is $5,000 a month, tax-free, irrespective of other income. So if you want to talk to Melissa about how you might get IHSS for your family, she can be reached at 818-835-2524 or Melissa at Standout Advocates, and advocates is plural, standoutadvocates.com. So that's one really great resource.
And I want to say, Bonnie, I'm so in accord with you. We've had Melissa on the show before. We've had
really?
We love them too. But I do want to let viewers know, because we have people who watch all over the country and in fact all over the world, that the IHS that the amount that you're talking about and the services that you're talking about, we're talking about California.
California law.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. I'm glad you know Melissa too. Okay, next person. I'm sure Shannon knows her too.
Maybe
Karen Fessel, Fessel, from the Autism Health Insurance Project, so AHIP. Karen is a go-to person for a lot of my clients if they are receiving services from a particular insurance company and they want to know how to perpetuate those services. Karen has a very good handle on what the different companies are doing and not doing. So Karen, and she's also very generous with her time. So Karen can be reached at Karen@autismhealthinsurance.org. You can look her up, Google her. She's very good. And then if you have an actual appeal that you need to make of an insurance company decision, I'm recommending that you talk to attorney Randy Curry, Curry. He can be reached at 949-258-4381 or Dr. Curry, Curry, at currylawyers.com. And if your request for insurance is denied or the amount you're given is too low, he has over 30 years experience dealing with insurance companies, bad faith failure to pay under a policy of insurance, and he really loves the work, and he's done a lot of work with CARD, including with Doreen Granpeche, and in fact the way he met Doreen was at my son Nick's case against Blue Shield. The insurance company took Doreen's deposition, and Randy defended her deposition. So anyway, those are some resources for you that I wanted to mention. Another is SERR. If you put in SERR, Special Education Rights and Responsibilities, into your computer, if you're in California, you can pull up a really good publication that's written for lay people, but it's written in a very intelligent way, and I use it, and I just think it's something that you can have on your computer. and it answers a lot of the questions that you have and that we deal with on the show. So that's special education rights and responsibilities. So then some other things that have come up. What is the difference between a non-public and a private school in California? Now, under the IDEA, the states have the ability to pay for a private school placement for a student if they want to. And the rules about how they contract with the private school is left up to the individual state. So in California, if you have a placement that's private and you want it written into your IEP, the district can do that, but then what's going to happen is they're either going to have to assist the private school in obtaining non-public school certification, or they're going to have to give the school a temporary waiver of certification so that they can make the private school into a non-public school. Non-public schools have an application process through the California Department of Education where they have to provide certain assurances and fingerprint their staff and TB clear their staff and make sure that they meet minimum state standards for certification, and then they become a non-public school rather than a private school. The reason that's significant in California is if you are non-public, all the rules about discipline, expulsion, and other things apply to you just as if you were in a regular public school, whereas if you're in a purely private school, that's not true. More and more of our families, though, are turning to private schools because the non-public schools are few in number, and they are limited in terms of what they can offer because the districts pay them so little. The districts pay like $125 a day to a non-public school, and that's just not enough money to get the kind of training and qualified staff that you need to work with a person with autism. So that's just a little bit on public and private, non-public and private schools and how they differ. And then we keep hearing about other health impairment on the show and in life, and other health impairment, I've told you, is not an automatic IDEA eligible disability. You have to show, for example, that your ADHD or your asthma or your migraines or whatever the issue is something which causes limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to the educational environment, that is due to a chronic or acute health problem such as asthma, attention deficit, diabetes, epilepsy, a heart condition, hemophilia, lead poisoning, leukemia, nephritis, rheumatic fever, sickle cell anemia, Tourette syndrome, and adversely affects a child's educational performance. So that's section 300.8C9 of the federal regulations, so 34 CFR 300.8. I can send this all to you, Shannon, after the show if you want to put it up. But basically, you've got to show all those things to get eligibility under other health impairment. And that's come up a lot, so I wanted to mention it.
Spectacular.
And then I was thinking, I don't know how much more time we have.
4 more minutes.
4 more minutes. Oh, well, that's good. You know, I was thinking that we should do some reading of the law to give people, sorry about that, give people a sense of what it's like to read the cases and the regulations and figure out what they mean. So I had something I wanted to read you about all of that, but first I wanted to say another issue that's been coming up is who's the responsible district for child find and services if, let's say, a child is removed from public school and put in a private school? And the answer is that really depends, and we can talk about it some more, but I'm going to throw out a few examples. So under 34 CFR 300.131, if you live in one place and your child is going to private school in another, so let's say you live in Los Angeles, but your child is going to a private school in Burbank, question comes up when it's time for an assessment, who is the responsible district to do that assessment? And the answer is, you can ask either your home district or the district where your child goes to private school to provide that evaluation. The district of residence is responsible, though, for providing FAPE, not the district where the child is in the private school. But the private school, if it does an evaluation instead of the home district, can be responsible for funding an IEE. People in private school have something called a services plan as well as an IEP. The services plan says how many or what type of services they're going to get from the public school district that their parents live in. And the answer to the question is a service plan along with an IEP needs to be updated annually. So just because you're in private school doesn't mean you don't have an IEP. Quite the contrary. Homeschool requirements, because I know some of the families that listen to the show are doing homeschool. The federal requirements are at 34 CFR 300.130 through 44, and the lead educational agency for evaluation and reevaluation for homeschooled students is the district of residence. So that's some stuff about private school students. That becomes a thorny issue in certain circumstances, particularly with homeless children or foster kids that don't have a stable residence. So with that said, Shannon, if you don't have questions, I was going to proceed to read some of the law that we all deal with every day, unless we're out of time.
We've got a little more than a minute. Do you want to take a minute to read something?
No, I'll save it for next week.
Okay.
I think that's better.
I agree with you. I'm all in support.
It'll be more meaningful if it's not.
Let's take that minute then to talk again about the Tollner. Is it Tollner and Associates? I'm never sure about
No,
this.
it's Tollner Law Offices, and you can reach us on the website. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at 310-245-1968. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay.
And that's it.
And to just be specific, though, you're in the Southern California realm, and so if people are needing help in Southern California, they would be calling you directly. If they need help in Northern California, they can call directly to the law firm, correct?
They can call me. They can call up north. It's up to them. There's some very fine lawyers in the San Jose office, and you're going to be meeting them soon.
All right. Very excited about that. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, Bonnie.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you, Shannon. Have
Bye-bye.
a good week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we are going to take a break, and then we are going to come back with Paul Worthington. He is the Director of Research and Development for the Lindamood-Bell Learning Processes. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Logan Shepherd. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepherd is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepherd now.
All I really want to say is, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream, that one day, I can just, inspire people and never give up. Because, that's what I want to do in life. Because if I can succeed, they can succeed. And I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the CARD method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-5555. CARD. Rock on, Logan.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited right now because joining us via Skype is Paul Worthington. He is the Director of Research and Development for the Lindamood-Bell Learning Processes. This is a wonderful company. We've actually done an interview before about Lindamood-Bell, but it's been a while. And just the other day on the show, we had two brothers, the Cox brothers, who were on here talking about the amazing things that they're doing in their lives. And we asked them, like, what do you attribute your success? And one of the things that they mentioned was Lindamood-Bell. I love when I go to a conference and whenever there's Lindamood-Bell is there, because my favorite thing on the planet, and I'm holding it up here, Paul, you guys give away these wonderful Post-it note, little notebooks. I never go anywhere without my Lindamood-Bell Post-it notes. So, just a side thing.
There you go. If you need more of them, just let me know.
Oh, you could, like, that's a wonderful gift for me whenever, like, I love them. They're truly wonderful. So Paul, welcome. I don't know that I thought about it before. I didn't realize that there was a research and development portion of Lindamood-Bell, which just makes us like you even more. I think a lot of people just think of it as an educational support that helps their children to learn more and get more out of the education that they get. But the fact that you have research and development is very exciting. Tell us just briefly about, for people who don't know about Lindamood-Bell Learning Processes and your research and development department.
Sure. We developed the R&D department. Now it's been, I'm guessing, close to 25 years ago. The reason being twofold. One, the major issue is, while we've experienced a great deal of success in addressing the needs of kids who have language processing deficits, there's still so much we don't know. And so that was really kind of the impetus behind conducting additional research, because there's always room for improvement in our programs and processes that we've developed and engaged in over the last 30 plus years. The second reason is that from an internal standpoint, we really wanted to take a look at monitoring the fidelity and the ongoing development of programs within our organization. You know, we're now up to over 100 centers around the country, internationally, in both the Atlantic and the Pacific, Australia, England, soon to be Dubai of all places. If we have the research capacity that would allow us to monitor whether or not we're actually improving on the processes, that's an important consideration. So internally, I do research on the work that we do across the corporation within the various sectors, and the work that we do with schools, and the work that we do in our Lindamood-Bell Academy, which is basically our internal schooling operation. If we're working internationally, for example, in Honduras, we're doing some work down there. What's that look like as compared to what we do in our centers? We're working in schools. And so that was the second reason. Back to the first reason, which was that forced us to engage in collaborations with research universities, especially now that the neuroscience of being able to understand what's physiologically going on in the human brain. That technology is so robust, that gave us a new way to validate whether or not we're actually increasing those areas, the functionality of those areas in the brain that are predictably related to good language processing and cognitive skills.
Well, and just to clarify, Lindamood-Bell Learning Process, do you guys say it processes or processes?
Processes, yeah.
Processes.
Either is fine.
Okay. So, but this is not something that is just for individuals on the autism spectrum, but you guys have an entire division that specializes in folks on the autism spectrum. Is that correct?
It's not a division specifically. It is within a division on our Learning Center operations, but it crosses over. I mean, we wind up in our school contracts where we're training teachers out in public education, for example. They're using the same programs, only applying it to kids on the spectrum who are within public education.
Got it.
In my division, where we're working on the research side, we collaborate with universities to conduct studies to look at the approaches that we recommend where it applies to addressing the needs of children who have autism. And clearly in all of our centers, I mean, kids come in who are on the autism spectrum. So we have to cross-train a whole lot of people in order to meet the needs of kids who are on the spectrum.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you mentioned language processing deficits on the autism spectrum. And I think a lot of parents are probably like, wait a second, because they're used to just talking about language deficits, but I don't think the average parent necessarily thinks of it as a processing. And so it's probably, for some parents hearing that, it might be an exciting thing to hear that, oh, wait a minute, there's a process there, and maybe if we rectify some things that there will be benefits. So in terms of when you guys are working with individuals, how prevalent is this having a language processing deficit?
Sure. We got involved in this largely as a result of some collaborative work that we had done at a kind of a superficial level with Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh back in Pennsylvania. And one of the interesting phenomena, which we agreed with, having seen a number of kids on the spectrum, is that what they call the comorbidity is not a very friendly word, but all that means in clinical terms is how many kids on the spectrum also have very specific deficits on the language processing side. In other words, in those areas, for example, in reading, specifically within reading, one of the primary deficits that jumps up around 50% of the time, depending on who it is that you're reading in the research community, is children on the autism spectrum will have very severe, moderate to severe difficulties in understanding or comprehending what they read and or hear. And that's kind of counterintuitive because so frequently kids on the spectrum, you can take a 5th grade child and give him a college textbook and he can decode the print on the page, but he can't get anywhere near understanding what it is that he reads. And so we have a program that specifically addresses language comprehension. And that awareness ultimately led to a collaboration with the University of Alabama in Birmingham with Rajesh Khanna and his colleagues as part of a federal grant to take a look at the specific interventions that we had developed to address language comprehension, only specifically do a controlled randomized experiment in working with kids on the spectrum to see not only could we improve their language comprehension from a reading behavioral standpoint, but what happens when you do pre and post analysis looking at the functional connectivity or those areas of the brain that are classically associated with being able to comprehend what you read. And so that led to about 3 or 4 years of detailed work seeing what kind of effect we could have in or working with children who in fact did have these diagnosed difficulties.
Wonderful. And so you brought up the magic word that so many autism parents want more information about, comprehension, and some of the different things that you guys are doing to build comprehension. What I'm curious, because you work in the research end of things, what do you see happening? What is research showing you happens in the brain that then changes the equation? Does that make sense, my question?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Indeed, it was a bit of a revelation because we've always thought, traditionally, I should say, both in the neuroscience community as well as in the educational communities, we've always thought, well, there must be an area of the brain that's somehow not functioning the way that it should. And the counterintuitive part of it for kids on the spectrum or individuals who have autism was that they're so frequently extensively gifted in some areas. Why would it be that, and especially in the area of reading, why would it be that they can read so well, but they cannot translate the print in such a way that once they decode it, then they're getting meaning from whatever it is that they read, or for that matter, whatever they were listening to? Well, one of the findings from this study was, and it was a hypothesis when we went into this study, was that there was a idea that was developed again in Pennsylvania that what they saw in the neurological image of children on the spectrum was that those areas that are involved in cognition or thinking, or specifically where language is concerned, comprehension, what they saw was that there wasn't the connectivity and the white matter in the brain, those areas of the brain that allow for the axons, the dendrites, and so forth, that communicate from one area to the other, were not showing up as efficacious or as fluent as it would in, let's say, normal subjects who have normal comprehension. So we went into these studies, and it's referred to as the underconnectivity hypothesis. The hypothesis being is that children cannot connect from the language area of the brain to those areas of the brain where you translate language, for example, into basic images where mental imagery is concerned. Then sure enough, that would, in a negative way, affect how well they comprehend what they read and hear. So we went into this. We went into this study.
Do you need to pause because you got a guest for just
Yeah.
so okay?
Sorry.
Come back to me, Traven, so that he can deal with his guest, and we can go ahead and take him off for a second because he's got things going on. And I want to point out to everybody that we're almost done here in the interview. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So that's all right. It happens to the best of us, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, you were saying.
What I was saying was that, so we went into the study thinking, well, that matches what we see with children, and we have a theoretical construct on this, that the program that we developed, that Nancy Bell developed, the Bell part of Lindamood-Bell, was back as far as 1986-87, was that from a student observation standpoint, when you see it, we get these students who come in and they can read fine, but when you ask them to give you some idea that they understood what it was that they read, they can't tell you. And it became apparent, one of the things that Nancy discovered was that it turns out that it didn't appear that they were taking that language in and where they were creating mental representations. Like, you know, it goes along with the old cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right.
Well, if you take 1,000 words, how effectively can you translate that? And it turns out that within the cognitive sciences, there was a prominent cognitive scientist up in Canada. His name was Alan Pavio. He developed a theory called dual coding theory. And the simple version of that is that when you try to understand anything, if you're listening to somebody, or for example, if you're reading a book, you translate that into mental images. And the efficiency with which you're able to do that actually correlates very highly with how well you understand what you read. And so Nancy developed a program called Visualizing and Verbalizing. What we did is we took that program, used it with our kids on the spectrum at the University of Alabama as compared to control subjects who did not go through the intervention. And sure enough, we found a validation of this underconnectivity hypothesis, because after the intervention, the fMRIs, and more specifically the technology that's used in brain scans called diffuser tensor imaging, did show, in fact, that we increased the conductivity, or the white matter in the human brain, where those areas of the brain where language is taken in, we're communicating more effectively with those areas of the brain where we create mental representations, for example, in the hippocampus and back in the occipital lobe. And so it was a eureka finding for us to have that validated. We presupposed that that was the case, but we had no way to prove it.
Yeah.
So sure enough, kids on the spectrum do tend to have this underconnectivity, and it disallows, or it inhibits their ability to get meaning from what they read and hear.
So just to be clear, you know, these interventions work. You have proof that they work, and it's proof that it shows up on an MRI.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive. So we're just about out of time, but so for our viewers watching who are like, okay, well, where do I go to get this, and what do I walk over to the Lindamood-Bell place, and what do I say so that I can get these services for my kiddo?
Basically, it's just all it takes is a phone call, and we're all over the web to look us up. Contact one of our centers. If you call our main offices here in San Luis Obispo, California, we can easily switch you to a location that's nearest you. I might mention in passing also that the results of the study, those studies, 4 papers have been produced, and those are referentially offered on our website. But the findings from that, we got together with the University of Alabama and wrote another grant. They funded another 5 years of study for us to dig even deeper into these phenomena. And so we're actually looking and recruiting subjects right now from across the United States to be involved in the study. And we can point you directly to the folks in Alabama if there are families that would be interested in having their children participate in the study.
Do they need to be in the Alabama area? Where do they need to be? Okay.
No, we're in the United States.
Okay. All right. So what is the website that they need to go to?
It's Lindamood-Bell.com. That's straightforward, 1-800-233-1819. And we can direct you to the correct clinical locations, and or answer any questions. And folks are feel free to call me if they have specific questions about the research that we've been involved in, or that we're currently involved in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
You take care.
Yeah, cheers.
All right. You guys, we are totally out of time, and so I'm just going to remind you that this week on Tuesday we have a best of episode. On Wednesday we are going to have Dr. Doreen Granpeche. She is going to be here with us. I'm told that it's a hard She's going to be here with us. So don't forget that. And I'm going to let you know who's going to be on Thursday because I don't know that yet. And on Friday, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy and my good pal Nancy Allspaw Jackson back with us. So all of that and more coming up this week. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.